In an important development in recent American history, the Me Too movement was born and rightfully created a platform for victims of abuse. Unfortunately, some people chose to take advantage of that platform. Those individuals felt that any voice and any accusation, right or wrong, would carry the day because the world was finally listening to accusers. So in furtherance of their own agenda, these opportunists set out to thrust themselves into the spotlight and destroy innocent lives. Counter-defendants are such opportunists, and Nicholas Carter is one of those innocent lives. But Carter will not allow himself to be smeared in this way, protecting one's reputation and name by calling a liar is not victim blaming or bullying. It is simply telling the truth.
In this video, we're going to give you a brief overview of the lawsuit. There's a lot involved in this conspiracy, and so many of us who defend Nick's innocence have had a front row seat. These allegations are a wild ride. So much has happened since this began in 2017. Buckle in, because we're going to talk about all of it. If you're watching this video, then you probably have some idea of these allegations. There's been various headlines influencing public perception, and it's rare for people to determine what's factual or feel the impact on the innocent lives it destroys. This is one of the reasons we wanted to make these videos. Melissa's narrative has been far more accessible, and it's been a battle to correct the misinformation and present the other side.
I believed it was impossible to safeguard myself from his control and his influence.
Of the many things we'll discuss regarding Melissa, you may have noticed that she tends to portray Nick as a powerful celebrity who has a lot of influence within the industry.
My life and my family's lives have been at risk ever since.
But he's nowhere comparable to the likes of, let's say, Diddy or Harvey Weinstein. They built empires that allow greater influence within their respective industries. While Nick is part of a beloved band and has a devoted fan base, he wasn't at the height of his career in 2003 with that type of power, which they do know.
Nick Carter, at the period of time that we're talking about, and he wasn't famous. He was at the end of his freaking rope. He wasn't at the beginning of his rope. Give me a break, okay? And the bottom line is, that's the reality.
And he still doesn't today. But what benefit would it have to Melissa to compare Nick to these moguls within Hollywood, when it's safe to say he doesn't fit that description?
We think it's so she can attach herself to the experiences of their victims and place unwarranted blame onto Nick.
On September 27, 2023, Melissa posted a statement on all her social media platforms following the Nevada court denying her anti-SLAPP motion. That was their attempt at getting Nick's counterclaim against her and her father Jerry dismissed.
The statement included these claims of power and influence from Nick. Schuman and her father are appealing the ruling and will continue their legal defense against Carter's use of this Nevada lawsuit as an attempt to silence them and violate their First Amendment rights. Melissa also added to the statement, "It's a desperate attempt to use his celebrity media access to mislead the public and scare survivors." But is there any truth behind these statements?
These can be common experiences from victims of powerful men. And as we said, it's no surprise Melissa will try to personalize something that doesn't apply to her. Her statements are designed to influence the public into disregarding Nick's case. And keep in mind, this is only a small portion of Melissa's manipulation. She also failed to include an important part of the judge's order allowing Nick's counterclaim to move forward, probably because it goes directly against her statement.
The court concludes that the evidence Carter submitted in the support of his opposition, in the form of approximately 92 exhibits, including affidavits and declarations, is sufficient to meet his statutory burdens. Carter's counterclaim was compulsory, given the causes of actions asserted against him, as set forth in the complaint, and was not brought to harass, intimidate, or for an improper purpose. In summary, the judge found Nick provided enough evidence for his counterclaim, and that his counterclaim was not filed as a way to harass, intimidate, or silence Melissa.
But was Melissa ever silenced?
Well, if we look back, Melissa was able to tell her story repeatedly on various public platforms, mind you, with no real evidence to back up her claims, not only in regards to the alleged SA, but also her allegations of harassment and cover-ups she spins from after she came forward. So, in reality, Melissa has never been silent, nor has she ever been silenced.
And on the other side of the spectrum, prior to the lawsuit, Nick had not spoken publicly about the allegations, apart from his initial public statement denying it. And now that Nick finally has the opportunity to defend himself, with evidence and through the legal system, 5 years after suffering in silence with false narratives thrown at him, she's pushing that he's trying to silence her. This all feels like a calculated attempt to villainize him and take away his ability to fully defend himself.
So today, we'll focus on Shannon, Melissa, and Ashley to give a brief understanding of Nick's case for each allegation, and why we believe he has legitimate grounds for filing the counterclaim against his accusers.
When Shannon's lawsuit made international headlines alleging Nick of SA in 2001, her allegation was a revelation to the general public. But she was no stranger to those of us who observed her online antics for the last few years. We witnessed her allegation evolve from Nick being mean to her into alleging SA. And you'll see that her police reports outline a similar storyline. Prior to this, Shannon was a fan of Aaron and Nick. While she was a bigger fan of Aaron's, she did retweet Nick in 2017, followed him on Twitter, and sent condolences to the Carter family when Nick and Aaron's sister, Leslie, passed away. But all of that changed in 2019 when she got involved with the Schuman smear campaign against Nick and was used to bolster Melissa's allegation. On September 17, 2019, Nick filed a restraining order against his brother Aaron due to his increasingly alarming behavior. Aaron quickly retaliated by proclaiming himself a silence breaker who is exposing Nick and giving a platform to the accusers, who he claimed reached out to him for help. The Schumans had a lot of involvement with Aaron during this time, and we will go into a lot more detail in a separate video.
On September the 21st, 2019, days into Aaron and the Schumans' Twitter campaign, Shannon tweeted to them wanting to join. In the next tweets, you will see that Shannon is referring to Nick when she says Voldemort, and the tweet reveals she was not identifying herself as one of Nick's victims, but as a victim of abuse in general. 3 days later, Shannon reached out directly to Jerry Schuman. After some confusion on where Shay's support lies, she asks if she can send Jerry a DM, and Jerry says, "You may. I have just followed." For now, we're going to focus on certain details from the police reports on how Shannon's story evolved and how she does appear to be influenced. The first report is from the Hurricane Police Department in Utah on November the 26th, 2019. This is 2 months after her initial tweets to the Schumans. In the first report, Shannon told the officer she'd been cyberbullied and an assault had taken place in another state.
And if you followed along since the restraining order, you will remember how often Aaron and Melissa talked about cyberbullying.
That same day, the officer met with Shannon at her work to get more information on the cyberbullying. Shannon told the officer that Nick assaulted her, then tried to her in 2001 after a Backstreet Boys concert in Seattle, Washington. But she didn't say anything because Nick has been making threats towards her.
I don't recall seeing any threats made towards Shay. Do you?
I don't remember that. And I also don't recall Nick hiring people to stalk and harass Shay, which she also claimed in the police report. Shay told the officers she's friends with Melissa Schuman, who is also a victim of Nick's. And here's the interesting part. Then Shay calls Melissa for support, and Melissa told the officer that she met Shannon 3 months ago on Twitter and that she knows what happened to Shannon. After this conversation with Shannon and Melissa, the officer provided Shannon with a witness statement to complete, gave her a victim's advocate pamphlet, and told her she needed to report the incident to the police department in Seattle, Washington. On December 3, 2019, the same officer made contact with Shannon and collected her completed witness statement relating to the incident. Shannon told the officer she wanted to talk to Melissa and once again wanted her support, so they did a FaceTime with her. During this FaceTime, Melissa helps with Shay's report by telling the officer that several people have been trying to hack into her and Shannon's social media accounts. Shannon told the officer she was not hard, but was assaulted as Nick attempted to grape her. She showed pictures of bruises, but did not want to send the pictures to attach to the incident. The next day, on December 4, 2019, Shannon made contact with an officer at the Tacoma Police Department, where she reported she went to a concert with her friend Joy, who said she managed a fan club for Nick Carter. After the show, they went to the band's bus for autographs, and Nick invited her to his bus and eventually led her to his bed. She said she felt awkward. As she got up to leave, he grabbed her arm, which left a bruise. Shannon said he only grabbed her arm and no other physical activity occurred.
Around 9 months later, Shannon made 2 subsequent reports to the police. August 25, 2020, almost a year after her first interaction with the Schumans, is when Shay first alleges and reports that Nick essayed her. And these reports evolved into an increasingly aggressive essay. Once again, Shay mentions she had spoken to Melissa and Ashley about details of the alleged incident, which goes to show how involved Melissa and Ashley were during Shannon's ever-evolving story. And on September 17, 2020, Shannon submitted a handwritten addendum where she changed a number of key details from her previous police reports. One of those changes was the friend she went to the concert with, which was previously her friend Joy, and she changed it to her friend Eleanor.
On December 30, 2021, Shannon, Melissa, and Jerry appeared on a podcast for Child USA with a woman named Marcy Hamilton. Marcy Hamilton is an academic and the founder and CEO of Child USA. Through the years, Marcy has developed and maintained relationships with various law firms. Each of Nick's accusers, by the way, are represented by one of these firms.
And we will dive more into Marcy and these law firms down the road. It's also interesting to note that Corey Feldman is an ambassador for Child USA, and Marcy, who's a staunch advocate for allegations with no proof, has spoken highly of Corey, despite the various public allegations made against him.
Shannon filed her lawsuit in Nevada on December 8, 2022. A month after Nick's brother Aaron passed away on November 5th, and a day after what would have been Aaron's 35th birthday. This felt like a strategic move to kick Nick while he was in a vulnerable emotional state, and take advantage of the press Nick and the Backstreet Boys were getting following the release of their long-awaited Christmas album. This was also a way to interfere with the promotional TV appearances that they had lined up for their Christmas album titled A Very Backstreet Christmas, including getting their own ABC Christmas special, A Very Backstreet Holiday, that was due to air 1 week later and was cancelled due to Shannon's lawsuit. Their GMA and other appearances also got cancelled, and they also lost a recent MeUndies contract and other endorsements. A day before filing their lawsuit, Shannon's attorneys posted a live press conference announcement on their firm's Facebook page, as well as a media advisory out to all the local LA news outlets, which said, announcing an SA lawsuit filed against Nick Carter of the Backstreet Boys for the rape of a young teenage girl. This was a clear attempt to drum up as much public exposure to their lawsuit and their firm. During this press conference, Shannon's attorney, Mark Boscovich, constantly encouraged other individuals to come forward with accusations of SA against Nick and to call or email his law firm. What looks like an attempt to recruit more women to join them. The firm even had a hotline to call with an ad that read, "Attorney Mark Boscovich is encouraging other women who may have been SA by Nick Carter to call," with a number attached. In general, and we firmly believe this, any allegation should be properly investigated. But the ethical practices of these law firms are questionable, along with having witnessed Melissa's supporters used to bolster her credibility. by making accusations against Nick and to reinforce that there is truth in numbers. This only reinforces to us the significance and the importance of properly investigating every allegation when it is made.
And throughout this media campaign, Shannon's alleged disabilities, her claim of HPV, and being a minor at the time of alleged incident were all weaponized to garner more outrage and salacious headlines. In attendance at this press conference was Marcy Hamilton of Child USA. She spoke of Shay's bravery and how her coming forward was making history and would change the world. And therefore, she said today should be called Shay Day. Later that day, Marcy tweeted about Shay's bravery once again. Interestingly, there were multiple replies hidden by Marcy within this tweet. These replies were filled with people pointing out that Shay admitted to lying and various other issues with Shay's allegation. But we're not really surprised that Marcy doesn't care whether Shay's allegation is actually true, and that she has no concern with helping these accusers cause damage to a potentially innocent man and instead will conceal the truth.
Joy, the original friend Shannon claimed attended the show with her, provided an affidavit for Nick. Joy had watched the press conference that had Shannon and her lawyer publicly announcing their lawsuit against Nick, which really just goes to show just how viral their media stunt had spread. Joy was angered by Shannon's allegations and knew some of her statements were not possible. Joy said she met Shannon in a chat room that was created for Aaron Carter fans in the early 2000s. Joy was a street team leader for Aaron, and Shannon joined Aaron's street team. If you remember, Shay had originally said in her police report that Joy managed a fan club for Nick, so this was also a change in her story. Shannon and Joy developed a friendship, and Joy said Shannon knew she was going to be at the Backstreet Boys show at the Dome on February 25th, 2001. But Shannon never told her she was also going to that show. Joy was staying at the Four Seasons Olympic Hotel, the same hotel the Backstreet Boys were staying at while they were there. So after the show, Joy and her friend Melissa, coincidentally, not the same one, left the show before it ended, so they were able to get back to the hotel before the Backstreet Boys did. The hotel was approximately a 35-minute drive from the Dome. While in the lobby, Joy personally observed Nick Carter entering the hotel approximately 40 minutes after Joy and her friend left the show. And to quote Joy, "Given that we left the concert early and that the hotel is located approximately 35 minutes from the Tacoma Dome, Shannon's story is factually impossible." The other friend Shannon claimed attended the show with her, Eleanor, had a deposition on February 6, 2024. In regards to Shannon's accusation of Nick infecting her with HPV, Shannon said she showed Eleanor her genital warts and claims Eleanor went with her to a clinic to have them examined and stayed with her the entire time. However, Eleanor says Shannon never told her she had genital warts, never showed them to her, and that she never accompanied her to a clinic. In regards to Shannon's claims of Nick grabbing her arm, which caused bruising, Shannon testified that Eleanor asked her about the bruising and took a picture of it. However, once again, Eleanor says Shannon never showed her any of the bruising on her arm, and she never took pictures of any bruises. Eleanor also shared in her deposition that Shannon offered to share money with Eleanor if she recovered anything from the lawsuit with Nick, and that bothered Eleanor. She said, "That's not what I was in this for, and yeah, there's no way." Shannon had claimed that due to the emotional trauma from the essay, she started self-harming by cutting herself to cope with the pain.
After my assault, I started cutting myself to hide my pain. I felt like I had nowhere to turn, no way to express my emotions, pain and confusion, except by hurting myself.
However, Eleanor and Joy said they had knowledge of Shannon self-harming before this alleged incident in 2001. Eleanor said she first noticed Shannon's self-harm in the fall of 2000, and Joy had said in her declaration she noticed wounds on Shannon's arms in the summer of 2000, and that Shannon's self-harm was known and discussed on the street team she was part of with Shannon. In 2019, Shannon also became friends with Heather Hyatt on Twitter. During this time, Heather felt like Shannon was being used to keep up Melissa and Aaron's smear campaign against Nick. On October 20, 2019, Shannon confided in Heather that she had never been sexually assaulted by Nick. In these Twitter DMs, Shay asks, "Can I ask you something?" Heather replies, "Yes, of course." Shay then confesses, "I feel bad. I didn't get hurt by Nick like Melissa and Ashley did. He hurt me by saying really mean things and bullying me."
Nick provided affidavits from various personnel who were present at the time of the alleged incident. Most of these witnesses who were employed during the Black and Blue tour echoed the same protocol, which outlined how Shannon's allegation was factually impossible. So we're going to try to give some key differences. None of these witnesses are currently employed by Nick or Backstreet Boys.
Marcus Johnson, AJ McLean's primary security guard during the Black and Blue tour. The Black and Blue tour had a strict security protocol that included security accompanied each of the band members at all times. The only time a band member was allowed to be left alone was after they were escorted by security to their own hotel room. Tour buses were required to travel together and stay together. It was strictly prohibited for any band member to be alone on their respective tour bus with a fan, given the security team's concerns that fans could be aggressive and unpredictable. Tom Hudak, production manager during Black and Blue tour. After every performance during the Black and Blue tour, the protocol was to provide each band member with a towel and robe as they left the stage. Then they were to be escorted to their respective tour buses and depart from the venue immediately to the hotel. This was called a quick out. Robert Fontenot, venue security director during Black and Blue tour. There were no autograph lines after the performances. If there were any fan interactions with band members, these would only take place before a performance. The tour buses were parked in an area that was always guarded by security personnel to ensure that no unauthorized persons could access or come near the band members' buses. Jonathan Morant managed Crystal Harris, Backstreet Boys' opening act during the Black and Blue tour. As a talent manager and musician myself, I've been on many music tours. The security, organisation, structure and overall access restrictions during the Black and Blue World Tour were extremely stringent. Ms. Ruth claims that Nick Carter remained at the venue and invited her onto the tour bus is false. Once again, all of the artists, including Nick Carter, were immediately exited the venue after both shows. Moreover, fans did not have access to the tour bus staging area, so this would be impossible for her to get on his tour bus before the band's buses left together. Carlos Cardias, personal security for Kevin Richardson. Billy Evans, who passed away, was chief of security at the time and served as a primary security for Nick Carter. Billy was very strict about making sure Nick was always safe and never not left alone with any fans. I personally observed Billy treating Nick as if he were his own son and was very overprotective of him, to the point Nick was required to ask Billy's permission to go anywhere during the Black and Blue tour. Brian Littrell, Backstreet Boys member. Anytime my band members and I would leave the building to board the tour buses after a concert, we would stay together. The mantra was, "Come one, come all," so that we were always accounted for. Our security detail was very strict about following protocol, no matter what, since the main concern was for our safety. Nick Carter. I recall the Tacoma Dome shows, but do not recall Shannon Ruth at all. Having met and encountered millions of fans and people over the course of my 34-year career, it would be impossible for me to definitely know if I ever crossed paths with Shannon Ruth. However, I do not recognize her face and do not believe I have ever met her. I am, however, absolutely certain I have never had sex with Shannon Ruth, that I never essayed Shannon Ruth, and that I did not grab, bruise Shannon Ruth's arm. Shannon Ruth's statements that I essayed her are totally false. On October the 14th, 2017, around a week after the Harvey Weinstein scandal shook the world, Melissa Schuman tweeted a blog. With everyone in the media discussing SH/SA, I thought it was time to share my own experiences. In this blog titled The Harvey Weinstein Effect, she talks about the Hollywood culture for women and attributes her lack of success throughout her career to her strong moral convictions. On November 2nd, 2017, she published her blog titled, "Don't Worry, I Won't Tell Anyone," accusing Nick of SA while they worked on the film The Hollow in 2003. It didn't get much traction. That was until she posted a link to that blog on Twitter, writing, "I'm not afraid anymore, #MeToo," on November the 18th, 2017. At that point, it only took 3 days to go viral and make international headlines.
Since Melissa's original blog was posted, there have been numerous story changes, and it's always been disturbing how comfortable Melissa is changing details of her story, assuming she can insert the word trauma and everyone would have to accept it. While we will go into a few things later in this video, we're not going to go through all the inconsistent aspects until down the road closer to trial.
I know we say this over and over throughout this video, and it's because Melissa, Shannon, and their witnesses have to go through depositions, and during the trial, they give their testimony on the stand. We want to get their full stories to get a full picture before we can break it down thoroughly. That includes the extensive smear campaign aspect that involves many individuals, advocacy groups, and law firms.
We'll also go into Melissa's claims of harassment, her persistent attempts to seek media attention and efforts to be known for this, and overall how she claims full ownership over Nick. But for now, we're going to go through a few videos and posts that have been floating around since 2017.
Some Melissa supporters in the past brushed these things off, said it wasn't evidence, and accused Nick supporters of victim blaming or perpetrating grape culture. Although official admissible evidence has not yet been decided, most of these have been presented in Nick's counterclaim as evidence, as it should.
While we know there isn't a one-size-fits-all with victims of abuse, and we know sometimes victims go back to their abuser, remain close, and harbor positive feelings, this is common when there's a close relationship attached. We have to look at what applies in Melissa's case. Melissa has said repeatedly that at no time did she have any positive feelings towards Nick. Among many things, she claims she wanted to press charges, never wanted to be anywhere near him, she experienced PTSD, she even wrote a blog comparing hating Nick to hating Brussels sprouts. And as we go through these posts, you'll see that every explanation she's given follows the same feelings towards Nick. It's probably the one thing she's said that's remained consistent.
The first thing many people noticed was that Melissa was following Nick on Twitter. He was not following her. She basically replied and said that she wasn't aware she was following him. So take that as you will. In July of 2017, around 4 months before her public allegation, Melissa added The Hollow to a playlist on her YouTube channel. That was the movie she worked on with Nick, where the supposed incident took place. She even liked tweets that related to The Hollow in 2016. And going back to her MySpace days, she included the unreleased song There For Me. This was a duet she recorded with Nick and sang with him at a showcase, which happened to be 1 year after the assault she claimed took place. And it was the first time she stated she saw him after filming The Hollow. She even liked a tweet referencing that duet in 2012. In 2010, someone asked Melissa if she still kept in touch with Nick Carter. She replied she hadn't seen him in a few years and added he was a talented guy. This was something she didn't need to include. In 2012, she sent condolences to Nick after the passing of his sister Leslie. It's important to note that she was the one who began that interaction. On September the 6th, 2017, Melissa posted a video on her channel where she says that music from the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and Britney Spears give her the warm and fuzzies.
Music that you grow up listening to, you're naturally is going to make you feel better. The music from the 2000s or even the 90s is very nostalgic for me. It reminds me of my childhood. I was a kid at that time, so they bring back the warm and fuzzies. NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and good old Britney Spears.
In this IG Live from May of 2017, Melissa is asked if she heard about Nick Carter's dad, who had passed away about a week prior.
No, what happened with Nick Carter's dad? Please tell me it's positive. I'm excited for this new show, Boy Bands. Hopefully it's as good as like American Idol and stuff. I'll have to Google what happened to Nick Carter's dad. Oh my gosh, no he didn't. Oh my gosh. That poor guy has gone through so much. His sister, now his dad. Poor guy. He's been through it, man, I'll tell ya. So sad. Yes, boy band is going to be amazing. I can't wait for it. It's going to be so fun. I was surprised. Is Nick the only judge on that show?
Get way cleaner clothes way faster.
That's so nice, Jay. Yes, we all should be praying for him. Aaron Carter. Aaron's a hoot. I love it. I love it. You're just like so in tune. I love it. Jenna's always on top of it. Yes, Baby Spice, so Emma's on it. I saw that.
When she explained this, she is referencing that she did have an interest in being a judge on the show Boy Band, which Nick appeared on as a judge. But she said it was prior to her knowing Nick was attached to it, and she only found out about it when someone on the live stream brought it up. And she said she didn't have the privilege, to be honest.
But that's not true. She brought it up after she asked,
No, what happened with Nick Carter's dad?
and she's waiting for someone to tell her.
I'm excited for this new show, Boy Bands.
Which means she did know at least prior to this live stream that he was attached to it. And she added that she was excited about the show. Melissa chose to add on throughout this entire interaction, when she could have kept it simple and sent her condolences.
This video was posted on March 15, 2017. It's from the Backstreet Boys' residency in Vegas. They're performing the song The One, and a good portion of this video is focused on Nick, who is laughing and seemingly having a great time. Melissa said she was managing Dream at the time and was trying to drive traffic to her and Dream, so her replying to this was purely a business decision, doing whatever she could to survive. Funny part is, this was posted in 2017 and Dream had publicly disbanded in 2016.
After disbanding, they left their group page open to share memories, and that's all you see on their page from that point forward. And while it was said that Melissa and Ashley wanted to continue with the group, there was never mention of new projects at any time. And in 2017, Melissa didn't have a lot of activity on her own page either. She has a total of 3 posts on her Instagram page from all of 2017. She said she commented and liked posts to drive traffic, but what exactly was she driving traffic to? And Melissa's not well known. If she wanted to promote herself, she would know you need to mention who you are or what you're promoting. Melissa simply commented that she liked the video and was glad they shared it. She said she did this to survive, but she would rather comment and like posts of her grapist over posting regular content herself. Or she could have chosen to comment on the various other pop acts from the 2000s with fan pages. Overall, this felt like a failed attempt to make something up after getting caught enjoying a video of Nick. And that's a common theme with almost every clarification she's tried to give. Not only does that make this post questionable, but every other post and explanation she's given that constantly positions herself as this ignorant poor victim who could not avoid Nick.
This was posted on Melissa's IG in 2016 and deleted right before her allegation. Many people had seen it, and some commentary that went along with it. Someone had reposted it back in 2016 with Melissa's old IG handle. In this post, the duet Melissa sang with Nick is playing in the background, and Melissa had written positive words about him. When she's been questioned about this post, she's avoided explaining it.
Melissa liked this post from 2016, referring to Nick and her husband as DILFs. Melissa said she only liked this tweet because her husband was also mentioned. But she didn't have to like this tweet at all. It's really easy not to like a tweet where your supposed rapist is mentioned as a DILF.
That is curious. And speaking of her husband Brandon, Nick and AJ appeared on Lip Sync Battle in 2016, where Brandon was a part of that show as a backup dancer. This is what he posted on his personal Instagram. Melissa said Brandon did that because he had to promote the show, but he didn't promote every episode on his personal page, and Gigi Hadid was a celebrity on that show. Nick and AJ only appeared as surprise guests, and the funny part is, even in his caption, he used the point, "The boys are back." and they focus on the fact that Nick and AJ appeared on the show. This raised a lot of eyebrows and caused a lot of questions.
Melissa has said that she told her bandmates of the incident with Nick. And in 2018, she said that during the My 2K tour, which Dream was part of, that they would have members from other groups join them on stage, and she never knew who would show up. She said she told her bandmates that she didn't think she'd be able to perform or function had Nick been one of the people who showed up.
And I remember telling the girls, like, I don't know what I would do. I don't think I'd be able to perform. Like, I don't think I'd be able to function. Had somebody else showed up.
And that brings us to 2015. Melissa's group page, Dream, tweeted Merry Christmas to Backstreet Boys and expressed missing them. Now, not only is it odd for Melissa to express missing her supposed rapist, I would not express that sentiment towards my friend's rapist. Also in 2015, Melissa and her bandmate Ashley did an interview where they go through their summer throwback playlist. One of those songs was I Want It That Way. This is what they had to say.
I Want It That Way by Backstreet Boys. Okay,
Another one of the youngins.
this is a guilty pleasure. And you know what? I'm not the only one. I've seen grown men dance, cry. No, but recently, like with their kids.
Normally, there aren't any direct witnesses to an essay. In this case, however, there were 2 other people present in the small apartment and in this same room where the alleged incident took place. Those there were Nick's friend at the time, Tony, and Melissa's roommate at the time, Rachel, the 2 most important witnesses, besides Nick and Melissa, of course. Since Nick's counterclaim has included some details with these witnesses, we're going to go into a few things. One significant change from Melissa's original blog is when she wrote that she never told anyone about the alleged essay for at least a few weeks, including her roommate Rachel. But around 1 month after she wrote her blog, Melissa appeared as an exclusive guest on Dr. Oz. On Dr. Oz, she claimed she told her roommate the day after it happened, and then told her roommate's mother.
You mentioned that you spoke to people about it afterward. To who?
To my roommate, and then she took me to go talk to her mother. And then it was her mother that sat me down and explained to me what was happening. And I was in disbelief. I still was in, she had encouraged me to go to the police. She had encouraged me to go get a rape kit.
But all the people you mentioned confirmed what you said. So I know you told people who were close to you that night.
Yes.
This was quite a significant change in her story, and a lot of people have pointed that out to Melissa since 2018. In Melissa's declaration, she explains that Rachel, her roommate, had called her before she went on to Dr. Oz and reminded her that Melissa told her after it happened. Before I did the interview with Dr. Oz, I received a telephone call from my former roommate, Ms. Green. Ms. Green told me she had read my blog and was calling to offer her support. During our conversation, we discussed the night of Carter's assault and the days and weeks that followed, and she reminded me that, contrary to what I had written in my blog about not telling her about the assault until weeks later, I had in fact told her about the incident shortly after it occurred. She reminded me that she took me to speak to her mother and that her mother had urged me to go to the police and get a rape kit.
Again, we will go into Rachel and her mother's conflicting statements down the road. But going back to Melissa's original blog, it's not as if this is a detail that's completely missing. And Melissa has said she took a lot of time writing her blog and only included things that she remembered vividly.
And I wanted to make sure that everything that I wrote was something that I vividly remembered.
So this conversation with Rachel is one of those things. Rachel says, "That was so much fun." Melissa replies, "I just want to go home. I'm tired. I just want to go to sleep." And Melissa makes it a point to say, "I didn't tell her. I didn't want to even admit what happened was real to myself." Then she acknowledges it again. "Over the next few weeks, I withdrew further and further from my friends and my family, and they noticed." And Melissa says, "I still didn't tell anyone." So, per her own words, she remembered this conversation vividly, and she had the time to go back to that moment and that conversation. Melissa detailed exact conversations that took place between Rachel and her, even Nick and her during the showcase. but not the pivotal disclosure when she first talked about it and where Rachel's mother had helped her realize what had happened and encouraged Melissa to go to the police and get a grape kit. Later in the blog, she once again acknowledges when she told people. After the showcase she did with Nick, and when she wasn't signed with his manager, she says she told friends and family.
Another significant detail Melissa failed to mention in her blog was that Tony and, allegedly Rachel, were asleep on the floor next to the bed where the alleged incident took place. But why would Melissa fail to mention in her original story that there was an actual direct witness to her alleged SA?
One could speculate that it's possible Melissa didn't want to include a direct witness that could potentially go against her version of events. So if Tony had come forward and said he was asleep on the floor, she could say he was lying, and it was an attempt to protect Nick. But after Melissa found out that Nick and Tony had a falling out years ago, she might have thought she could convince Tony to go along with her version, which is not out of the realm of possibilities given Melissa's past actions.
And this brings us to December 18th, 2017. Melissa reached out to Tony via Facebook Messenger, attempting, we believe, to recruit him to corroborate her story. It was during this exchange Melissa admitted that Tony was on the floor just a few feet away.
We're just going to bring up one significant part of this conversation as it highlights the previous point. Keep in mind, these messages were from December 18th, 2017, a little over a month after she wrote her blog, and a few weeks after her Dr. Oz appearance, where she changed her story of telling her roommate Rachel and her mother. In this message, Melissa says, "I remember you on the floor in the room I was in with Nick. I never knew if you were asleep or not. I always hoped that you weren't, so you could validate my story." This wasn't something she just remembered. She specifically says she had always hoped he was awake for the purpose of validating her story, which means she knew he was asleep on the floor in the same room and purposely left this detail out of her blog. We'll go deeper into this when we break down Melissa's story. And despite repeated efforts, she was not able to persuade Tony to validate her story.
Melissa also claimed in her blog that she told her then manager Niles Larson about the incident in 2003 and that she wanted to press charges. On February the 7th, 2018, Melissa filed a police report. During the police investigation, Niles Larson was questioned. In this, Niles stated he is a manager in the entertainment industry. I asked Larson if he ever represented Melissa, and Larson said, "Schuman?" Larson told me he represented Melissa from approximately 2002 to 2005. I asked Larson if he knew what I was investigating. Larson told me he read a blog a few months ago regarding Melissa and a grape. I asked Larson if he knew any information regarding that allegation. Larson told me he heard about it for the first time ever after reading that blog. I asked Larson if Melissa ever mentioned anything to him regarding any incidents while he was her manager. Larson told me that grape is a very serious thing and that he would have remembered if Melissa ever told him anything about a grape. Larson told me he was confused because he never heard about the incident until he read about it in a blog a few months ago. Larson also told me Melissa elected to be represented by a different manager in 2005. Johnny Wright, the same manager that had managed the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC and others. Larson stated that he thought it was odd to find out about the grape since Melissa sang a duet with Nick Carter sometime after he stopped managing her. Larson told me he did not want to discredit Melissa but did not have any information as he only found out about the grape a few months ago. While all the evidence we've seen through the years give us a firm belief that Nick did not grape Melissa, we have speculated on whether Melissa made up this allegation completely in 2017 or she regretted sleeping with him in 2003 and then claimed it was grape. While we lean more towards the former, it wouldn't come as a surprise if she did feel regret back then. She has given the impression that after this night with Nick, he had somewhat lost interest in her. Melissa has spoken at great length about her strong Christian values and being a virgin at the time. So if she did hold these strong values, giving that up to someone who held no future relationship with her could lead her to regretting that decision. She also spoke about the importance of her career at that time and how she realized at 18 she had to use her body to get ahead.
As I neared closer to my 18th birthday, I started to pick up on this sort of silent understanding by those around me that success would come at the expense of the exchange of my body.
We think it's very possible she thought sleeping with Nick would help her get ahead in her career. But when that didn't come to fruition, not only could that lead to regret, but she may have harbored some resentment towards Nick that grew in 2017 when her career was at a complete standstill and she wasn't sure how to maintain a career in the industry.
On April 11th, 2023, when a lot of the headlines from Shannon's lawsuit died down, Melissa filed a lawsuit against Nick. In a predictable fashion for the Schumans, this was the day before the anniversary of I Want It That Way. But more notably, this was the day before Nick's wedding anniversary. So all the headlines on that day were of Melissa's lawsuit. There were also some hints that the Schumans wanted to interfere with any Backstreet Boys' 30th anniversary celebrations, which was later that month on April 20th. This lawsuit was filed in California under the recently enacted Sexual Abuse and Cover-Up Accountability Act, also called AB 2777.
To quickly summarize, this is a limited time legislation that allowed survivors to file a civil lawsuit that normally would be time barred by the statute of limitations. However, this would mean that a cover-up would have to have taken place. Per the strict guidelines, the plaintiff must allege the following factors. In Melissa's initial instant action, Melissa's claims did not fit the requirements under AB 2777. After extended delays on October 16, 2023, Melissa finally filed her first amended complaint against Nick, once again listing Nick, but this time adding in her suit, an entity Nick controls, known as Retract Inc., doing business as Chaotic Productions. In her attempts to claim a cover-up, Melissa is trying to use Shannon's weak allegation to meet the criteria of an attempted cover-up from a previous allegation. Due to the Nevada lawsuit involving all of the same individuals and evidence, Nick has filed a stay to this LA lawsuit, which would put this case potentially on hold until the Nevada case is decided.
His counterclaims expose the truth, and in reality, it exposes the dark side of fandom.
Although Shannon's allegation does represent the dark side of fandom, there is no better depiction than Ashley Repp's case.
Ashley's allegation delves into a life filled with deception and how an obsession with an idol can turn dark and nefarious. As with Shannon and Melissa, this case is still unfolding, so we can only provide what we know thus far. The alleged incident with Ashley took place in 2003 in the Carter's family property in Marathon, Florida. Ashley was 15 and Nick was 23. Ashley had maintained to police investigators at the time and to various witnesses through the years that she lied to Nick and his whole family about her age, telling them she was 18. But once Ashley got involved with Melissa and the smear campaign in 2019, she changed her tune and claims Nick knew she was 15. Nick recently provided declarations from people who knew Ashley and had knowledge of her time on the Carter property in 2003. Ashley Poninsky, who we will refer to as Ashley P going forward, so there's no confusion, gave insight on Ashley's deceptive ways and obsession with Nick prior to her time on the Carter property. Ashley P met Ashley Repp in a Backstreet Boys chat room when she was 13. She claims Ashley Repp deceived her for around 2 years, pretending she was Nick Carter. During this elaborate catfish, when Ashley P wanted to speak to who she thought was Nick on the phone, Ashley Repp would pretend to be Nick's girlfriend at the time, Willa Ford, and claimed Nick was unavailable to talk. Ashley Repp eventually came clean and apologized to Ashley P, which she accepted, as she believed Ashley Repp was desperate for attention and had no true friends. Thus they began an online friendship. In October 2002, Ashley posted an online message to thousands of Carter fans, falsely claiming that Nick's father Bob was in hospital and was diagnosed with cancer. At that time, the Carter family was concerned about these claims being made by an unknown poster. The person was also telling fans that any condolences and well wishes to the Carter family should be sent to her, as she is friends with the family. As this situation was looked into, someone discovered that Ashley made the post and informed Stephen Spaulding, Nick's uncle, in an email. In this email, dated October 22nd, 2002, the person says, "My friend who told me the URL and I also gave the AIM AOL SN from the girl who posted that message. It is Emerald Kisses 122. Her real name is Ashley." Angel and Nick both confirmed in their declarations that Bob Carter did not have cancer in 2002 or any other time. In Ashley P's declaration, she says that in 2003, Ashley Repp told her that she spent months living with the Carter family in Marathon, Florida. While Ashley P was hesitant to believe her, Ashley Repp showed her pictures at the property and told her she was managing a fan website for Angel Carter, and that's how she got invited to visit.
Ashley Repp told Ashley P that she had slept with Nick and Aaron while at the property, and she was very clear that her sexual encounter with Nick was consensual, and even said that she wanted to sleep with Nick. And when Ashley P asked Ashley Repp if Nick knew she was 15 years old, Ashley said she lied to Nick and told him she was 18.
Ashley Regan met Ashley Repp in 2003 in an AOL chat room for the Backstreet Boy fans and bonded over their mutual admiration for the Backstreet Boys. Shortly after meeting her, Ashley told Regan that her mother was a drug addict and she planned to move in with Angel and the Carters in Marathon, Florida to get away from her home life. During this stay, Ashley would message Regan on a near daily basis. She started by saying she met Aaron Carter and began dating him and wanted Regan to create a website to publicize this relationship.
Regan said that Ashley would talk about Angel and Aaron's parents and other family members like they were her own. Weeks later, Ashley told Regan she was going to meet Nick, as he was coming to stay at the compound for a week. A few days later, Ashley enthusiastically informed Regan that she slept with Nick. When Regan asked Ashley if Nick knew how old she was, Ashley replied that she told Nick and everyone else at the compound that she was 18 years old. During another one of Nick's visits to the compound, Ashley told Regan that Nick had brought a girlfriend with him and told Regan that she was insanely pissed off.
Ashley told Regan that during her stay at the Carter compound, she had had sex with at least 5 men. Aaron, Nick, Craig, a friend of Aaron's, a guy named Andrew, a friend of Nick's, and another friend of Nick's whose name she could not recall. She wore these experiences as a badge of honor and would remind me of them every time she could. She never once conveyed to me that any of her sexual experiences were not consensual or otherwise conveyed anything that would suggest improper or unwanted contact. Opposite, whenever she discussed her sexual experiences at Marathon, particularly those with Nick, she was always excited and very positive about her memories.
In Kelly Hanlon's declaration, she shares how she met Ashley in an AOL chat room in 2000 and met in person once or twice at Backstreet Boys shows.
Similar to Ashley P and Regan's declarations, Ashley told Kelly she was going to stay with the Carters and messaged her throughout her stay. Within a very short period of time, Ashley said she had slept with Aaron and another male. When Nick arrived at the compound, Ashley bragged about having slept with Nick too and informed Kelly she had told everyone there, including Nick, she was 18 years of age and always expressed her time there and sexual experiences with joy, excitement and pride. Craig Velger was close family friends with the Carter family and spent substantial time at the Carter residence. He was good friends with both Aaron and Nick Carter and remains good friends with Nick Carter. Craig said that prior to Nick arriving at the Marathon residence, he had consensual sex with Ashley, and he knows Ashley had consensual encounters with Aaron on multiple occasions and others prior to Nick arriving, and he believed her to be 18 years old as she looked and carried herself as such. He remembers Ashley being very comfortable with everyone at the Marathon residence. Chris Eagle dated Ashley in late 2004 for approximately 7 years.
In his declaration, he says that Ashley was a huge Backstreet Boys and Nick Carter fan, and on a near daily basis she would spend hours online in chat rooms and even running websites for the band. He says they were her pride and joy.
Ashley told him that she had lived with Angel Carter and the Carter family at the family residence in Marathon, Florida. He says that Ashley was very open about her time at the Carter property and always had fond memories of living with Angel and meeting her brothers During their relationship, Ashley told Chris that she had slept with both Aaron and Nick during her stay at the Carter residence. When Ashley discussed having sex with Aaron and Nick, she would do so in a bragging fashion. She described it to me like she was a groupie that got the opportunity to have sex with two of her biggest idols. Due to prior incidences, the Carters had a strict policy for visitors to the Marathon property, which was explained in two separate declarations from Ginger Carter, Nick's stepmom, and Jen Corendis, a neighbour of the Carters. The policy was simple. All visitors that were not family members or friends of the family were not allowed to access the Marathon family compound unless 1, they were at least 18 years of age, and 2, they signed a waiver and non-disclosure agreement.
Nick's younger sister, Angel Conrad, says in her declaration that she learned about a woman named Ashley Repp who had launched a website for her fans in 2002.
She said she did not ask Ashley to create the website or compensate her in any way, and she had never met or heard of Ashley prior to this. She asked Ashley how old she was, and Ashley told her she was 18 years old.
In 2003, Angel invited Ashley to the Marathon property. She states that she did not pay for, arrange, or otherwise have anything to do with coordinating Ashley's travel from her home state to Marathon.
Angel says Ashley began having sex with Aaron and Craig almost immediately, and while she wanted her to have a good time, to thank her for managing her fan website, Angel was getting frustrated with her because she was having sex with many of the men staying at the property, and politely asked her to stop. When she caught Ashley in another sexual encounter with Aaron, she asked her to leave the Marathon property. Throughout her 2 stays at the Marathon property, I never once observed Miss Repp exhibiting any emotion other than joy and excitement. She clearly loved partying with the group. She never once conveyed or displayed that she was distraught in any fashion to me. In Nick's declaration, he states that at around the end of 2003, he went home to Marathon to see his family during his time off. Ashley was introduced to him as the manager of his sister's fan website.
Because of their family check-in policy, he knew his family had confirmed she was at least 18 years old, and Ashley had confirmed to him that she was 18 as well.
Nick was aware Ashley had prior sexual encounters, and almost immediately she began flirting with him and repeatedly told him she wanted to sleep with him. Ashley pursued Nick and willingly had consensual sex with him.
Afterwards, she continued pursuing Nick and began acting as if they were a couple.
Nick left the property for a boat race with his father and met a girl who he began referring to as his girlfriend. When Ashley observed Nick with his girlfriend, she became jealous.
Miss Repp confronted my girlfriend, advised her that she was in a relationship with me, and demanded that my girlfriend leave my family's property. Miss Repp persisted until the issue escalated into a physical encounter between her and my girlfriend. Ultimately, Miss Repp appeared to accept my new relationship.
In addition to myself, Aaron and Craig Velger, it is my understanding that Miss Repp also had sex with 2 of my friends while in Marathon that year, one of whom was over 18 years old. Ms. Repp's statements that I sexually assaulted her are totally false. Ashley reported to the police in December 2003. As with Shannon's police report, we're going to focus on some crucial statements from Ashley's testimony for now.
It's important to remember that police reports are a person's version of events, and that goes for the accuser and all witnesses to an incident. An investigation is always conducted to find the truth within all the statements and other evidence.
To further highlight this point, one discrepancy within Ashley's own testimony in the 2004 police report is when she says she was still a virgin when she had sex with Nick, and that she had not had sex with anyone else since being with Nick, and then she admits she had sex with Aaron and Aaron's friend. In the police report, Ashley states that everyone in the Carter family believed she was 18 years of age, admittedly because she told them she was 18. She said Nick believed she was 18 and even asked her to confirm that she was 18, which she did. She said she never told Nick no or acted like she didn't want to have sex. Ashley said that after she had sex with Nick, he had another girl on the property that he referred to as his girlfriend, which made her upset and very hurt. She also admitted that if Nick had handled things differently, she probably wouldn't even be pursuing this incident. So this already shows us the vindictive intent behind filing the police report. After an investigation with other witnesses, the detectives concluded that they were not going to prosecute the case for the following reasons. Ashley portrayed she was 18, and members of the Carter family believed she was 18. Ashley looks 18, and any reasonable person would believe she was at least that age. Ashley stated everything was consensual, and she was able to travel from home with no supervision, spend her own money, and stay for weeks at the time. They also told her there were complications and she could herself be charged with a crime.
We are assuming this crime was Ashley's admitted fraudulent behavior with clear intent.
Rape by fraud is an action where a person obtains sexual consent and has sexual intercourse of any type by fraud, deception, misrepresentation, or impersonation.
Adult impersonation by vitiating the consent of the defrauded victim qualifies as rape by fraud.
The victim's consent to the intercourse is ineffective because of the juvenile's fraudulent representation as to being of age. Chris Eagle states in his declaration, "In the years I dated Ashley, she never indicated to me she was upset with Nick for any reason. In all the years I dated Ashley, she never suggested that Nick coerced, assaulted, or was anything other but kind to her. In fact, Ashley was a huge Nick Carter and Backstreet Boys fan throughout our 7-year relationship, which ended in 2012. In the years that following the police report, Ashley interacted with the entire Carter family and others within Nick's circle and remained a fan of Nick and the Backstreet Boys. She posted this on her Instagram in 2013. This tweet to Nick in 2011, she sent birthday wishes to BJ, Nick's sister, tweeted to Jane, Nick's mother, had various interactions with Angel, Nick's sister, a tweet to Brian's wife from the Backstreet Boys, and even various interactions with Nick's ex-girlfriends. Similarly to Shannon, all of that tended to end in 2019 when she got involved with the Schuman smear campaign against Nick, where she became a very vocal presence on Twitter with Melissa, Shannon, and Aaron. But the strangest part yet is even after this happened, she showed her interest in the Carter family when she sent condolences to Nick's half-sister Ginger when she passed away in 2023. Her obsession with the Carter family does not seem to have ended. Ashley P. says that in 2022, Ashley Repp began bragging about a lawsuit she was going to be filing against Nick and knew Ashley was lying, as she previously confided in her that she lied to Nick about her age and had willingly engaged in consensual sex with him. Because of my disgust with Ms. Repp, I terminated all communication with her and blocked her from my devices and social media platforms. I have not spoken with her since. My impression of Ms. Repp is that she was starving for attention and will do anything for the same. She has been that way from the moment I met her, whether she was catfishing me, pretending to be someone famous, bragging about having sex with the Carter brothers, or bragging about her mother's new wealthy boyfriend's possessions. It was always the focal point of her life. I know Ms. Repp is lying about being raped by Nick Carter in 2003 and will so testify if called upon to do so. Ashley filed a lawsuit against Nick on August 8, 2023 in Nevada. Again, 4 months after Melissa filed her lawsuit to once again get Nick's name back in the headlines with another scandal. Ashley's lawsuit is not about seeking justice. Ashley had consensual sex with other men who were over 18 at the Carter property. Yet in 2004, she only filed a police report against Nick, and Ashley's family had a civil suit pending, which means they were interested in getting money. So once again, in this current lawsuit, Nick is the only one Ashley is suing. This shows that back then to now, this has been a targeted, vindictive move to extort Nick. As of now, Ashley's attorneys have focused solely on Ashley's age, based on statutory laws.
There's no denying that laws are flawed, which is why they're constantly changing and many people advocate for revisions. This is why we try to look at things from a legal and a reasonable empathetic perspective.
While we would like to get into the development aspects of Ashley's age and how she had full understanding of consent and body autonomy, we're going to discuss that further down the road, as well as Ashley taking advantage of the overuse and misuse of the term grooming. Ashley wants to get a free pass due to her age, but 15-year-olds are not exempt from being held accountable for their crimes. It would be an injustice to punish someone who was deceived in the way Nick was, as Nick had no reasonable way to avoid falling victim to it. I was not friends with Miss Repp at the time or any other time. To my knowledge, she has never been friends with anybody in my family either. She was just an obsessed fan that exploited my family and continues to try to extort me. As we've already mentioned, Shay and Ashley both got involved with the Schumans in 2019 to join their smear campaign against Nick. and we noticed that they all had similar story changes during that time. To tie into the beginning of this video, there was an attempt to lend credibility to their allegations by creating a pattern with Nick, so he resembled other prominent alleged predators in Hollywood who had a long history of abusing women in a similar way. Along with each of these accusers' stories becoming more aggressive, they all made it a point to allege that Nick specifically infected them with HPV. HPV was never mentioned in any of their original stories, and HPV is very common for anyone who is sexually active. None of them have supported this claim with any proof of how they know Nick infected them with HPV. Ashley, in particular, was sexually active with multiple men during the same time frame, so it's impossible for her to attach her alleged infection to Nick. And around 2017, Shannon was seen by Family Healthcare while living in Utah, and she tested negative for HPV. Let's not forget their assertion that Nick targeted them because they were virgins, which is already inconsistent with declarations provided indicating that Ashley wasn't. They're also all specifying a particular alcoholic drink provided by Nick, cranberry juice and vodka, a type of VIP juice, as Shannon has alleged, or they are now alleging that Nick drugged them. One thing we have learned about Melissa is she takes a lot of ideas from other people. Many of the patterns we've seen are influenced by other allegations within the industry. The impact of surviving R. Kelly ignited Melissa into getting her own documentary released that would garner the same success.
Fallen Idols, which is produced by Isha Entertainment, looks set to be a hit piece aimed to assassinate Nick's character and further defame him in the eyes of the general public. And it comes as no surprise they have even in death used Aaron Carter to sell their allegations.
This documentary is already clouded in controversy based on the unethical practices of the production. They attempted to mislead Backstreet Boy fans and other potential participants about the true agenda behind this documentary. Their effort to try and con fan involvement included falsely claiming that they were a Backstreet Boys documentary about superfans. This clearly was not their purpose. The trailer alone is riddled with falsehoods and overdramatic. Even with civil lawsuits pending, Melissa, Shannon, Ashley and Jerry continue to show zero respect for due process.
We do look forward to a time when someone gives us a story worth telling, because the truth is far more compelling.
What level of depravity must these accusers possess to do what they have done to Nick? The emotional toil is hard to fathom. Having already overcome so many obstacles throughout his life, his perseverance is inspiring, and he only managed to become a better, more centered person along the way.
We do hope one day Nick tells his story in his own words, because there's no one else that can do it justice.
That brings us to the end of this video. In the next video, we'll be introducing a few key individuals, Molly Golightly, James Hartline, and Ole Elaine to give some background information on who these individuals are and how they tie in, since they will come up at various times.
Because so far, we've only scratched the surface. So until next time.